The market has been extremely unfriendly to our favorite sectors across altcoins, whether it's gaming, whether it's AI. These tokens are really just getting beat up across the board. And there's really been no sign of relief if you're looking at the 1 day, the 7 day, the 30-day charts on these things. It is not looking too pretty, but I have brought one of the best TA experts in the market today, Kyle from the main channel on Crypto Banter, and he's going to give us an insight into some of our favorite coins here, and we're going to dive into some of my favorite infrastructures, some of my favorite individual game tokens as well. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to talk about meme coins because that is dominating this market. So without further ado, let's get in the game. And first and foremost, guys, drop down, hit that like button, and subscribe. We are so close to 100K, just a couple thousand away from that 100K subscriber mark. Help us out down below. Hit that like and hit that subscribe. And then a quick shout out to all of our sponsors here on In the Game. We have Vulcan Forge, Ultra, Dreams Quest, Game Starter, NordVPN, 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏, and Real Fever. So shout out to all of our sponsors and our exchange sponsors. Mexi, Bybit, we have Avo, we have Blowfin. You can check them all out in the description down below. But let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to bring Kyle up here. Kyle, how are you today?
Hustle, wonderful, bro. Really good to be back on another show with you. It's been a long time, very overdue, but good to be here. And yeah, guys, subscribe. I'm impressed. Almost 100K. Honestly, well done, bro.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we started the In the Game channel with moving it over to Banter about 8 months ago, and we're really 7 months ago, but we're really close to that 100K mark. So hopefully we can push it up here in the coming weeks. But Kyle, this market is a little bit rocky to say the least. And if you're holding altcoins, people out there might be a little bit scared when they see these red numbers in their portfolio over the last few days. What are your thoughts on the current market, maybe on Bitcoin, as well as just where do you think this bull run is headed?
Sure. I'll screen share, but first to start off, you know that this market's really been a trader's market, I think, for the majority of this bull run. But the good news is that this is cyclical. This is usually what you see within the markets, and it requires a lot of patience, and then things start to move parabolic soon after the halving cycle, which we know has already just been completed. So I think everybody just needs to sit tight, hold on, and if you're holding those super fundamentally strong bets that are building, which I'm sure Hustle's outlined to all of you, then you should be A-okay. A lot of the coins which I've looked at in terms of gaming have approach their support levels. Some have a little bit more to go, but I think it is predominantly dominated by whatever Bitcoin is going to do. So if I screen share over here, what I usually share with people is that the trend is your friend till the end of the trend, and people get confused whether it's a bull or a bear market and whether you should be risk on or risk off. Now, what anybody at home can do using one simple indicator and the TradingView chart is simply just put on the 21 exponential moving average, which is the yellow one over here, and you'll find throughout every single bull and bear market, this is a highly respected level on the weekly time frame. So if you have a look at the last bull run that we had, as soon as price gets above it, and then the key word that EMA is angled towards the upside, that's your bull run, right? Every time you come back into it as support, price continues onwards and upwards. Here we did have a double top scenario. So of course it chopped some traders in and out. Price then moved back up, and once you lost that level, the bear market commenced. We reclaimed this over here, right on this candle on the 9th of January 2023. And if you simply followed this, you actually would have gone long on Bitcoin on the close of that candle, which occurred at $20,875. And this is just a simple 1-2 indicator. We obviously sharpen things up and get a lot more tight on the entries and exits, but simply put, you can see over here it held you in. The EMA was angled onwards and upwards. We recently on the last low back tested it over here perfectly to the wick, bounced off of that level. Now we've recently come back down and we are holding above. So my thoughts on the market, I'm going to try and summarize it really quick, not to steal the show here. But over here, you have the range lows. Here, you have the range highs. And pretty much Bitcoin has been range bound in a corrective phase over here. So every time you come back towards those key levels, you'd be looking for a buying opportunity. The question is now, are bulls able to reclaim the mid-range level, which is coming in at around the $66,000 to $67,000 zone? Because if they can't, the next break of that range low would be pretty catastrophic. And I'll show you another chart as to why and what that would look like. The reason being is because when you focus on the chart pattern over here and the candles, you can see you've closed at these highs. You've now closed multiple candles lower, and the next bounce up and rejection would be now your third lower high, which is starting to form a downtrend, which means a potential breakdown. So as per the way that I'm viewing the chart is like this at the moment. I'm preparing for something like this. And obviously the hope is that the bulls take control and get price moving up. We're currently in a long trade over here, which we built up at those range lows as explained. Now we're expecting a bit of resistance into the mid-range, but hopefully bulls can push straight through, hold price above, consolidated over there. If that does happen, then we'll start to compound our long trades, continue to hold this, and we'll be looking for the big breakout of the range high at $73,000. If you can get above this level, there's implied targets of in the region of $80,000 to $90,000. But a rejection off this level, as mentioned, will be pretty catastrophic because you've rejected there with lower highs, and you'll be rejecting once again. And then we're going to be looking for signs of weakness and a short trade. Now, that short trade would likely lead price down to your first major bounce area at $50,000 for Bitcoin. And thereafter, you have a high confluence zone at $44,000, which just so happens to match up with this rising trend line over here, which is currently meeting up at that exact point. Now, this scares a lot of people and they think it's not possible, but it's something I outlined over a month ago. In trading or in markets, you get periods where the market is in backwardation and other periods where the market's in contango. Now, the market was recently in extreme contango. What that simply means is that the futures price of the asset in terms of futures contracts month after month after month after month were getting overly optimistic, expecting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher prices for 6 months in a row. And that causes extreme contango, and the market finds a way of reverting back to normality. So you have this extreme contango scenario, which might actually be brought back down here to bring you back into normal contango, which is the way that markets prefer to trade. So we also have agreement over here with this chart, which shows us based on these blue bands. You'll see this is the highest number of blue bands we've ever printed within the entire history of Bitcoin. And what these blue bands represent is the Bollinger Bands squeezing into one another. Now that shows you periods of very low volatility, and following low volatility comes high volatility, which shows you again the implied move off of this when you get expansion is going to be, if it moves towards the upside, $85,000, and if it moves towards the downside is $45,000, which comes down to that exact target level. So it's a pretty important point to be hyper focused in the markets right now. I don't want to leave everybody with bad news, so I'm going to give you the one point of really good news which we've had within the cycle, and it's this. Firstly, it's the 21 exponential moving average holding as support, still angled upwards. And secondly, every time we've seen the RSI come down to the levels which we've just currently hit, we've had pretty monumental bounces. I've marked them off over here on the vertical lines running down the chart. This was the FTX low. This one we ranged and consolidated for a bit, only to bounce. This was the USDC DPEG. I'm sure, Hustle, you remember that. Quite a frightening time in the market. RSI came down to that, again, 30 level, led to a pretty monumental bounce towards the upside. Huge moves over there. We saw the same thing again happen over here on the 18th of August, which was similar to the FTX collapse in the sense that we set in the ultimate low, we ranged a little bit, but then you can see very quickly after that rallied towards the upside. We had another correction in early January, the 23rd of Jan, and then followed on by a big move up. And then when price moved down here to these lows most recently, which came down to 56,500, the RSI came down to that level. And then consequently, we continued to range, and we've once again seen that. Point being over here is that all the action is going to come down in this mid-range level over here, which is $66,000. if bulls can take that level out, they're fully in control. But I know that bears are going to be looking to also fight for this level to hold this as their zone. And if they reject off that, well, unfortunately, we probably are going to break that range low on the next attempt. So long story short, that is my thoughts on Bitcoin. And it's definitely an important time in the market to be, sitting forward and paying attention.
Side note, the long story short, that is the perfect little entendre for this situation, right? Because he said shorts could be lining up. So it was a long story, but the short might be the play if certain things happen.
Bro, you're too clever for me. You're too clever for me.
I love it. No, it's an in-depth breakdown. And it's the perfect thing that the In the Game channel needs, because all the viewers here know I'll bring the fundamentals, I'll find the quality projects, and we'll deliver them. But these are the types of things that, you guys see between the lines that I can't. So it really is valuable for the audience here. And I'll have a couple questions on a side note, just because it's interesting to get different opinions. What's your opinion on the timeline of this cycle? Did the ETF, in your opinion, accelerate the cycle to where it's not going to line up on that 4-year timeline exactly how it has in the past? Or like, what are your thoughts on the timeline now of this bull run?
Sure. Let me quickly bring this up over here. I have already mapped this all out quite extensively, and it's something that I believe should hold true. If you look at, to very quickly answer the question, I don't believe that the ETFs would have accelerated this at all. I think that a lot of people are looking for a left translated cycle, which for those of you at home don't know what that means. It just means a very quick cycle towards the upside. I'm betting on a right translated cycle, which is a longer cycle, which is much more bullish for us. It means that we're going to make a lot more money because we have a lot more opportunities, and that slow grind with long consolidations builds the foundation and the base for enormous moves towards the upside. And this is what we've seen within the prior cycles. Now, the timing has been pretty spot on, and everything is following actually exactly according to plan. If anything, things have been even more bullish than ever before, because we broke the all-time high before the halving cycle, and we've never actually seen that before. But that also could mean that that extreme contango could just lead into a correction down into these zones, creating a macro higher low. So the timing cycles that I'm hyper focused on is this chart over here. It's a monthly chart of Bitcoin. And very simply put, what I've done is I've measured all the all-time highs on a monthly scale. And you'll notice from top to the next cycle top was 49 months. And then you measure the bottom to the next cycle bottom. It's exactly 47 months. Top to top over here was 46 months. Bottom to bottom, 47 months. And then I've estimated that, well, if we follow more or less along top to top, you could be looking at a major cycle top anywhere between August and November 2025. Now, I've reserved the possibility that maybe it's a shorter cycle, and maybe the double top scenario that we had in Bitcoin in the last cycle was an artificial secondary top driven predominantly by leverage. If that is the case, and we use this candle as our anchor point, well, that just moves it a little bit forward, but it still leads into the end of this year, beginning of next year. So by Q1 of next year is where I would start to become cautious in the event that maybe timing wise, that could be a top. Now, there's a lot of different things that you can look at. Another thing that I focus on over here is the RSI, which you can see you got this down sloping trend line, which has actually stopped price from going any higher in every single cycle top. So you can see the green lines that are running vertically, vertically across the screen. That RSI peaked into that, and that marked the cycle top. You then came down, you saw the same thing. The RSI crosses above 80, and that's where your strong bull momentum trends actually take place. And then again, tops into that trend line over there. You have this one over here. This one, again, this is why I say this one was a little bit artificial, because the RSI, at least according to the RSI, you should have topped the first time when you came into that zone, but it may have been driven a little bit more by leverage and Michael Saylor coming into the market, creating a whole lot of excitement. So the RSI didn't get back there, but this is where price topped. And what do we have right now? Well, we haven't even crossed the 80 mark on the RSI, which does indicate that ultimately this is just a reaccumulation and getting ready for the next move up. So looking at definitely a longer term cycle. The good news for the shorter term and what's going on in the market is that, if Bitcoin does actually come down in a pretty controlled, systematic fashion, so hypothetically, if we were to break down some of these levels and price were to just move down in a slow, controlled fashion because people are starting to bet on altcoins, you could actually still see the presence of a major altcoin rally. When you look at a lot of the altcoins, they're coming into key support levels, and I'm sure we'll bring some of that up in today's show. But most notably, you have Bitcoin dominance in a rising wedge formation over here, which is a bearish pattern. And the confirmation of the breakdown of this will occur if Bitcoin dominance can get below 53.8%, which is actually our mid-range level. So if you focus on the orange lines, we've been trading it from the bottom of the range to the top of the range, and mid levels are very, very significant. A break below that, like this, creating a lower low, will confirm the break of that uptrend, and then the back test into that would signify an alt season, which could be coming soon. So when you have a look at a bunch of the altcoins, you'll see a lot of them have just hit support. For example, Solana. Solana hit that $120 region, which is key and major support, and you are looking for a bounce at the moment.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? And also the last question, hard to tell about the timing in general, because it could have been a little accelerated, but maybe it doesn't mean it's accelerated. It might just be a shorter cycle, like you mentioned. I'm more betting on the thesis that it might still line up like it has in the past, the first timeline that you showed. My last question before we dive in some of these altcoins is, do you think that the ETFs and BlackRock getting involved has maybe caused a floor in the potential drop in bear market price if we were to see a major drop over the next, let's just say, 2 months, because it's the summertime? People might be traveling. There might not be as much liquidity in the market, whatever the case may be. Do you think that when I believe the altcoin or the ETF launched around 48 is when it went live, or it was something around high 40s, low 50s. Do you think that BlackRock is going to do everything that they can to maybe keep it above that at all times to make sure that their investors are always above water, the ones that got in first? Or do you think like you could ever see prices below, let's just say 48?
Sure. I think it's a really good question, and I think it's an important question. I do think that from a marketing perspective, they'll try their best, but at the end of the day, it's the retailers who are actually buying the ETF who will have the deciding factor, because they decide if they want to buy it. And those are the days that the ETF inflows increase, when we have a look at that chart of how much inflows came into the market. And the same will be true. Unfortunately, they're driven by fear and greed, just like anyone else. And if not more than us, because we're seasoned and experienced within this market, they're using an ETF to get in and out. So they may look at their portfolios and start to think that, maybe I was too quick to jump into this Bitcoin thing. And they start to have flashbacks of the headlines of how Bitcoin crashed 80-90%, and then they could start to exit those ETF positions, and BlackRock is just the intermediary that's facilitating the transaction and providing the ETF. So if they start selling, prices could go low, and that could create a cascade to the downside. But with an increase in the market size and the market cap, I do believe that, yes, the drops that we'll see in the future should be less. So diminishing returns, but also diminishing losses. Maybe we're not going to get to, the same percentage gains where we see these 20 to 30x gains from bottom to top in Bitcoin, but maybe we see a 10x gain, but then we're not dropping 80 to 90% anymore. We're dropping 60% from all-time high to all-time low. So I do think it will have an effect just based on the network effect of how many new market participants come into the market. It becomes a maturing asset, right? A maturing market.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not a perfect, you can't rely on it to never hit those prices, and BlackRock doesn't control everything in the regards to the market, but they do have influence. I just wanted to ask what your opinion was, because those are some common things I've seen. Everyone wants to know the timing of this bull, but also everyone wonders if the lows are going to be quite as low this time around. And I personally don't think so, but we'll just have to wait and see whenever we hit a full-blown bear market. But let's get into the main topic of everything on in the game, and that is the gaming altcoins. And Kyle, I know you hold some gaming coins, and I know you're not in the trenches as far as like fundamentals like I am in gaming, but what are your thoughts? Are you still bullish on gaming in a general perspective?
Sure. Yeah, I am bullish on gaming, but I think that, it will probably come towards the end. That's where they'll really start to rip. It seems like the majority of the tension's really been on that meme coin sector right now. Meme coins have kind of taken the limelight from gaming, temporarily, but we know that gaming, they've still been building. They have these massive user bases, and they have actual real world gamers which are incentivized to interact with these various different projects. So I think it's just a matter of time when that full-blown retail interest comes back into the market. You'll start to see the gaming take off in a big way, and we know that's where some of the major returns are. And I do still have a small gaming portfolio, definitely, but usually I use the charts to decide when to maximize the risk on those portfolios. So I've made some pretty good gains on the gaming coins, but I did take profits when I started to see signs of distribution. And I'm actually looking to reallocate some of that into the market or into the gaming tokens very soon, because I would say literally in terms of drawdown price, it might seem catastrophic, like 20 to 30% from hitting key support, but timing wise, I mean, that could be hit within the next week or so, because these candles are dropping by like 8-9% each day.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at some charts and see what you're seeing on some of these altcoins. And we'll start, I'm going to go infrastructures and then into individual games. So let's start with Beam, BEAM.
Okay, let's go Beam. I've got over here. Let's quickly have a look over here. So Beam, perfect. So this is an example of some of them that have come perfectly into range low support. You can see the way that price, respects these various different levels. And really, it's as simple as that. I really encourage people to focus on horizontals much more than diagonals. They're a lot more reliable. And what do, right? All these support and resistance levels simply mark out the psychology of the market participants at that particular point in time. And since humans are so predictable when it comes to the psychology, you can use these lines to determine when they're going to start to find fair value back in the market, or at least see things as undervalued and start to look to reestablish longs. And each time support, and now you're coming back into that. The other important thing to note over here is that time reinforces levels. This is something a lot of people don't know. So it's been a lot of time from that point to that point. In fact, if we measure it out, how many days this has been since we've revisited that level, that's 137 days, which is 4 to 5 months, which means that's a level that's going to be respected. Time reinforces the level. That tells me price on Beam is probably going to bounce from here. And this is the exact zone that you're probably looking to form a long trade on, so long as it can continue to hold this level at 16, or at least 0.01687. Stop loss would go below the candle that occurred on Monday.
Got it. Yeah, I think Beam personally is at a good buy level, just in my perspective, based on market cap and based on everything going on in the ecosystem. But that is a great indicator that you just showed, the time and like the time since the last price. Basically, what was the terminology you used?
Yes. So time will reinforce certain levels of resistance or support. So, for example, if when it eventually comes back here to the range highs, it's obviously going to take a lot of time. If you just imagine that the trajectory would look something like this, imagine it pushes up here, comes down a little bit, and then eventually gets there towards the third quarter of the year. Well, ultimately, it hasn't actually revisited this level then for 150 days. So you can expect the first test of that level is definitely going to result in a rejection and a reaction back to the downside, at which point you'll look to buy the next high low. And then eventually, when you break out of this range level, it's going to be looking very bullish for the long term. So I think a solid buy at this level. This is a trade that I would definitely be willing to take.
Awesome. Let's take a look at Ronin, because Ronin, RON. So this one is by far the top crypto gaming blockchain by users, by demand, everything like that. But the price, quality doesn't escape when altcoins are getting hit hard. It doesn't matter how good this project is, but I think it's getting close to good value levels. What are you seeing on the Ronin chart?
Sure. So this is what I was talking about. By some of these coins may hit their major support in the next week or so. Ronin would be an example of that. You got your major support coming down at $1.44. So I know that would be pretty catastrophic, but I think you'll get temporary bounces in between before even getting to there. But right now, this is currently falling off a cliff. So your first level of support is about 10% away. And for all you know, this could hit literally today or tomorrow with the way that this price is dropping. I expect a reaction off of that zone in the same way, right? Time reinforces it. Look at how long it's been since we came to this level. Expect a bit of a bounce from there. If it leads into a lower high, you might break through and come all the way down. So in a worst case scenario situation, I'd be looking at about negative 32% from current levels. But those are the zones, right? Anywhere between $1.88 and scaling your orders down to $1.44, I think is going to be phenomenal for the longer term. I expect something like this to pan out, right? I expect something like this. Maybe you get in there, maybe you don't even make it to that line, start to reaccumulate. Usually following a strong downtrend, what you should expect is a new range to form. So you find a little bit of demand, a new range. This is also known as reaccumulation. That's where you want to buy the bottom of that reaccumulation range, and then the breakout above that level. That's it. Then you know it's off to the races after that.
Yeah, amazing. I think that Ronan's getting super cheap as well. And I think when I'm looking at the price at just 210, I think anything under $1.80 or $1.70 on market cap should be a really good buy. And what's the level there on that first?
So yeah, I have 189 as the first level, and then I'd even mark off a mid-range over here at about 166. So you don't want to get too greedy on the buys. Usually I recommend to people to mark out an area of interest and you start to scale into that area. So it would look something like this, right? You kind of make your first buys as you touch that trend line, and then you can make your second buys coming into the mid-range, which is about 168. And then if you do lose that level, your final buys are made at about 144 at the bottom over here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I get asked all the time about, I don't want to catch this DCA and then it loses those levels and it goes lower. What should I do? And it's like, just on an easy example, if you have $1,000, then put 250 in. If it drops a little bit and it loses that support, but you still have conviction, like you said, layer into the position with the size rather than going all in at one level, because it is unpredictable. But at the end of the day, these indicators can tell you that we're getting close to good value levels.
Sure. So something I would say is that you want to scale into positions like this. It's called pyramiding, right? So draw a little triangle over there. And as price is moving into that level, you make your smallest buys at the top over here. And then you get bigger and bigger as you get to the major level of support, right? The stronger the support level, the bigger your buys are there, because that's closer to your invalidation. If you start to lose this level over here and you break below that, well, now the trade's invalidated, you're going much lower. But thankfully, you made most of your buys over there and not your big buys at the top over here. So that's called pyramiding into a position.
Love it. Yeah, great insights there. Let's keep on the infrastructures. Let's move over to Super. Super has made a lot of moves this bear slash into the beginning of the bull market. A lot of partnerships. I know Elio has a lot in store based off the things that I've been speaking to him about. So what are you seeing on the Super chart? Is this one had a huge run up, but the drawdown has been pretty aggressive here. What are you looking at?
So Super is finding support right now at current levels, which happens to be the mid-range. I've marked off the range levels like this. 50 cents is the range low. On the top side over here, I have 83 cents as the range high. And then you simply just take your Fibonacci tool and you measure from top to bottom of the range, and you just select 50%. So if you click on here and you go into it, 0, 1, and 50 or 0.5, that's your 50% level. You can see it is finding major support over here. And if you look at these previous rejection regions, it just so happens to line up in the same place. So resistance, 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 support over here on this wick, and potentially flipping that prior resistance now into support. That could be an area where you might start to get a bounce. Now, what I'd be careful of over here is just the lower high, and that, as mentioned, based on the analysis of Bitcoin, will likely affect the outcome of the altcoins. But if you do start to get a move up over here, reject off there, then you might see one more sweep down into the range lows. But the highest value buy area is going to be at 50 cents. But as I've said, guys, following the halving cycle, typically you don't want to get too greedy on your buys, because soon after the halving is naturally where prices just start to move parabolic. So this is definitely a good area for Super, at least for some DCA buys to go in.
Yeah, love it. Let's I don't know that I sent you this one on the list, but could you maybe take a quick look at IMX as well? I I love IMX, but the lack of product that's live on the chain is my concern on a fundamental basis currently. But it is the biggest gaming coin by market cap. And I know a lot of the people who watch the show, it's kind of one of those key positions in their portfolio. So what are you looking at as far as IMX?
Sure. Okay, let's quickly have a look at IMX. I'm just going to mark off the most significant zones over here. So I'd mostly be focused on this because that was obviously prior support. You can see again support over there until it lost it. As soon as it lost it, it respected that level as resistance. Resistance deviated that level, resistance, support that led into the big order block that led to the move towards the upside. So again, that's going to be a significant level which you would want to focus on as price approaches that. And that exact zone is coming in at $1.29. Percentage wise, very, very close. It is approaching there with about 15% to go before it hits that level. That's the first zone I'd look for a bounce. It may have a little scam wick or two that comes a little bit lower into this region. So I think that anyway, that you're scaling in between $1.12 and on the top side, $1.29, that's going to be an area of interest. My expectation would be something like this for IMX. I think you're probably going to see something like that, probably going to hold that. And that's where you'll get the tempt of the next run, at which point you've already entered, right? And then you can start to raise your stop losses into break even. If it does come down and deviate below these levels, unfortunately, that then becomes incredibly bearish because now you have the potential of coming all the way back down to your range low support, which is going to be at 52 cents. But that doesn't happen without a bounce from this zone first, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Great insights there too. And it concerns me, like I said, the lack of activity on the chain while they have a lot of games in their ecosystem. To me, I like to base it off network effect. The reason I think Ronin is going to crush it is because they have Axie, they have Pixels. They do have a bunch of games that have millions of active players on their chain. Whereas IMX, everything doesn't really operate based off the chain. And a lot of the games that they're bringing to the market aren't live yet, like their biggest titles. So that's my only concern there. But IMX is what people would call the Bitcoin of gaming because of its high market cap. So
Sure.
yeah, I definitely wanted to take a look at that with you. But I want to go into what I think has been so far the Axie of this cycle. And what people need to remember is Axie took multiple 35, 40% drawdowns last cycle before it did ultimately a 100x. I don't know that this coin will do a 100x, but maybe from the lows, it actually does have a decent shot. Let's take a look at Prime.
Okay, Prime, this one over here, I think, right?
Yeah, it would be, I think, what's the price there? It's 9 something, right?
Yes, $9.05. Okay,
Yep,
so looking at Prime over here, look, theoretically, it is coming into a key area right now because you can see all the prior candles that built up over here. There's a potential to bounce from this zone, but I would be betting on the higher probability outcome is that it is going to continue down to $6.71, which as a measured move, you'd be looking at, or at least as a percentage down, you'd be looking at possibly another 25%. So despite what you're saying in terms of it being super fundamentally sound, this is just what the technicals would suggest because this was the key areas, right? Prior resistance led to the move down, big move up, holds it as support, comes back, support, huge move to the upside. Remember, again, time reinforces that level. So you can bet your best dollar that it is going to bounce from that level because it's 155 days since it last tested that. So the move down into there, you can see clear lower lows and lower highs. Where does the idea really start to shift? Well, right now, if you started to bounce from here and it got front run, this area got front run, well, you could just simply wait and take out that level, which is coming in at 1075. And then most specifically, if you take out this candle over here at 1180, the trend is reversing. You will get pullbacks along the way. This is the thing with coins that are in a strong downtrend, which is what you're currently seeing over here. You don't need to rush. So for the community out there, take your time, right? You don't need to rush because when you're downtrending like this, unless you get some sort of quantitative easing on steroids and everybody gets stimmy checks, you're not going to V-shape out of here. What's going to happen is you're going to come down, you're going to find support, and then you're going to range for a little bit. And you can take your time and wait for that range to develop. And then all you do is you buy the bottom of that range and you reaccumulate at those levels. And it would look something like this, right? So if you look back historically, this is what's happened, right? You start to form a range, coins launch, they usually dump initially, it gets a big sell-off, it forms a range, and once you break out of that range, it goes full vertical from that point onwards. So that would be what I'd be looking at Prime. This is also in my portfolio. It's one of the coins that I bought quite early. Thanks to you, bro.
Yeah, Prime has been one of my best performers from bottom to top. It was a 10x since we entered, but obviously it has taken a bit of a tumble. I expect it fully to still be one of the most explosive gaming tokens throughout this cycle. So I appreciate the shout out. I'm glad you got in early. Let's take a look at a couple individual games too. We'll kind of speed run through these so we can get to some memes as well before we wrap it up. How about Wild? I think I sent this one to you. Wilder World. This has been one of the hottest gaming projects over, I would say, the last 3 months time period. They partnered up with NVIDIA. They did a big partnership with Celestia, which has like a cult following. They're on Epic Game Store. They've really pushed out a lot of quality updates over the last few months. This price has been pretty volatile. So I'm curious what you're looking at here.
Sure, it has been very volatile, and it's been respecting the range levels as well, which you can see very clearly over here. Range low, range high, range low, deviates. This is common, right? You get these deviations at key range levels like that. This one was obviously a bit more drastic, but right now what you're coming into is the mid-range, which is a very key area. Now, if you can potentially break back into this level over here, you could view that as a deviation of the upsloping trend line, because you got touch point 1, touch point 2, you've lost that touch point 3, but it lines up with a horizontal. And remember what I said in the beginning, the horizontals are a lot more significant than the diagonals. So you expect a little bit of a bounce from this region, which is what you're currently getting. I would wait and be patient for a little bit of a slowdown phase, right? Something like that. And if you can get back above 52 cents over here, you open up the possibility to trade now in a much higher range, which then becomes where those previous highs were, right? This becomes your new range high. So you always have to ask yourself in trading and investing, you know, is price in distribution or reaccumulation? Is it accumulating or distributing? Are they going long or short? What exactly is going on over here? And did you gain a level or lose a level? So the answer over here would be that if you can hold this mid-range over here, you know, then you've gained this level. A bounce over here means you've regained the top side of the range, and then you're looking at this to become the new trading range, which obviously would lead to pretty big moves, right? So the safe entry would be above that range high over there, which would lead to about 120% move towards the upside afterwards. But yes, key support that it's coming into right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like Wild, based off the run that it had and then the quick pullback, I think it's getting close to good levels. So that's definitely good reassurance to hear on that chart. How about Cidus? So Cidus is one of the few last cycle ecosystems that I'm still very focused on. I'm still very bullish on Vulcan Forged. I like Cidus a lot, and they just came out with a pretty big update. We'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, what are you seeing on the chart?
Okay, so Cidus, I'm not going to focus on the prior history of obviously where it launched and came down. We'll just focus on the more relevant levels, which is this, right? So you found a base over here, which became resistance. You can see resistance, resistance, eventually flipped it into support, created an order block. You had two order blocks, one that led to the downward move. That was one order block over there. And then you had the other order block over here, which shows you this is an area of significance. And that's no surprise that price is bouncing off of that level right now. This is the zone, right? Now you're expecting Cidus to start to become range bound. So as mentioned, following a strong downtrend, when you hit those key support areas, you want to flip this now prior resistance into support. And again, it's been a long time, right? Timing wise, look how long it's been since we tested that region. Similar to the rest, I'm guessing 150 days. Let's have a look. 215, so even longer. That reinforces this level. The first touch of that leads to a bounce, and now you're expecting a bit of chop, right? So expect something like this. This is going to create the reaccumulation range, and then you can see prices will probably start to rally with the rest of the market. Most realistically, full vertical send for everything in terms of the altcoin market is looking most probable to be in the third quarter of this year, so sometime around September.
I want that full vertical send. That's the best thing I've heard all show. And I want to update on this one. So that green candle, I think, comes from this update here where they're moving. They're launching Ton Station Games, which is backed by Cidus. And obviously the Ton ecosystem has been so hot over the last couple of months. And I actually think this is going to be a consistent trend. We're going to see games start trying to build these little Telegram experiences to break into that user base. Kyle, are you bullish on 𝗏, or what are your thoughts there?
Very, very, very bullish on 𝗏. So it's one of the coins, if we look at the chart over here, against Bitcoin. This is 𝗏 against Bitcoin. And that's an important thing. You want to see that the coin that you're investing in, if you're long-term trading is one thing, investing is another. If you're investing in a particular token, you want to see that it's uptrending against Bitcoin and outperforming it. And that's what we're seeing on 𝗏. So definitely bullish on 𝗏. I know fundamentally it's also one of Rand's top picks. So we'll see how the cycle plays out.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on 𝗏 as well. Let's dive into the fun stuff to close out the show. Let's look at some memes. So Brett's been the leader of the cycle, it feels like. What are you looking at as far as Brett? Are you involved with Brett? And yeah, what are the charts telling us? Because Crash on Twitter keeps saying he thinks this is going to tens of billions of dollars. What are you seeing here?
Sure. Look, it's a strong chart, very, very strong. In terms of meme coins, you know, I had a super strong run in the beginning. I was one of the first people to jump into the memes. And since then, I kind of went a little bit cold on it. Only reason why is I didn't want to give up all the profits. Sometimes they say, you know, when you hit a big at the casino, you leave and you take a few months off before you come back. If you walk straight back in, you're going to lose everything. So I've only dabbled in a couple of memes since, but I can always look at the chart, and the chart does show that Brett is super bullish, and you could probably even start to work out a measured move of where this is going next. So it's been range bound over here, but also reaccumulating within this upsloping trend line, creating higher lows but equal highs. Now, that's also known as an ascending triangle. Ascending triangles have bullish formation measured moves. Now we can take a conservative move towards the upside based on the horizontal, the rectangle over there. And that would be the breakout level. And then you can also go with a more bullish, optimistic view, which says if you measure from the beginning of the triangle to the top over here, and you also view this as your breakout level, which is going to be when you take out those highs at 18 cents, then where could this possibly be going? Well, we can quickly mark it off over here. If we take our, let's quickly throw in a horizontal over there, and that should mark off the levels. 1 second, let's grab that there. So one area is going to be over there, 24 cents. And the other one is going to be over there in terms of a measured move. That's 29 cents. So Brett, if it moves down into the mid-range over here, which is coming in at 15 cents, that's a area to look to reaccumulate. And as a percentage, target 1, 58% up. Target 2, you're looking at about 85% up. And yeah, it's floating onwards and upwards. It looks super strong. It looks super good. I was personally a couple of days ago really hoping that this candle was going to lead to a sweep of the lows. I wanted to see something like that. And I was looking to get long on the inside of that range. But as you can see, it seems to more be respecting this trend line and reaccumulating like that into an ascending triangle. So timing wise, I'll be looking at about, what's the date today? It's about 2 weeks away before it starts to break the top side. Usually ascending triangles break out 70% through the move. So if you're viewing that as the triangle, 70% of the move is somewhere around here between the 3rd and the 7th of July.
All right. Yeah. I think Brett, especially when Coinbase kind of starts pushing base chain a little more, the speculation if they ever do some sort of liquidity injection like an airdrop, which is risky for them because they're a tradable stock asset. But at the same time, I think they have the ties to do it. We'll see what happens. But I think base chain, Brett is the king of that. And I think we continue to probably see some really bullish price action there. And then to top it off, I think one that we both really like is Foxy. And same kind of thesis, you know, Linea is going to do a huge airdrop onto their chain. And I just personally think that people are going to gravitate to the biggest memes on the chain. And Foxy is the biggest meme coin on the Linea chain. What are you looking at as far as this chart?
Sure. So I mentioned every time you come into this range low over here, you really want to be buying it at that price level. It's 0.0122. So about 1 cent. That's the area where you're looking to get long. Now it's pushed up. It's trying to reclaim the mid-range. Mid-range is minor resistance. So I always view the extremities as major and the middle as minor resistance or support. So this would be major support, major resistance, this is minor resistance. And if it flips it into support, well, then it becomes minor support. And the closing candles, let's just quickly grab that again. If you start to see some closing candles above that 0.0168 level, which is where price is currently capped, that opens up the trade where you can long it all the way to the top side. And what we all really want to see, all of us who are bullish on Foxy, is we really want to see it break and hold above this range high, because then you open up a new trading range and you start to move into price discovery. But range levels are very well respected when it comes to newly listed coins, and you can see it over here, right? Perfect. Support, resistance, support, 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 deviates, you got resistance over there, comes down, support. So expect maybe 1 or 2 more rejections from the top side, but yeah, looking to accumulate anywhere it comes down at about 0.01. It is a very, very big position for me personally. It's one of my biggest meme coin positions.
Yeah, same here. I'm pretty heavy into this one as far as where it started at and its appreciation. It's come down a little bit, and yeah, this is one of my favorite meme coin positions in the market currently. And I'll just ask you one more question, because I only went through 2 with you today. But what are your favorite meme coins?
Sure. Good question. I think, look, in terms of relative strength in more recent times, 𝗓𝗡𝗓 coin is definitely one of them. Now, this is just from a tradability perspective. It's been a pretty clean chart. Okay, it broke out of what was a previous range high. You can see the perfect test over there, pushes towards the top side, comes back down to test this as support, and it's broken the downsloping trend line. So as a coin with relative strength against Bitcoin, ETH, and pretty much any coin that's out there, it's always one of the first ones to start to move and pop its head out. So I am looking at 𝗓𝗡 as one of my favorite meme coins. The other one that I've been looking at, obviously, is 𝗓𝗓 as well, which 𝗓𝗓, I'm looking for a move pretty much right now, similar to what I mentioned I was looking for on Brett. This is actually what I wanted to see on Brett, but we didn't get it. You have a clear range low level over here. Price swept below that. Now the reclaim of that range low opens up the trade where you can go to mid-range, range high. And then again, based on the rectangle, you can start to work out those measured moves. And you can even view this as a really extended bull flag, right? Because you had a pretty big move up over here. You started to flag out, and that could lead to pretty substantial moves. So if you started to look for a trigger long over here, that's a 260% move on what I think is relatively low risk. I'm super bullish on Solana for the entirety of the cycle. And similar to what we spoke about, Brett being exposure to Coinbase and a leveraged bet on Coinbase, Dog with Hat is also that same leveraged bet. Now, if you zoom in with the Whale Room community, we were on a live session, and this is where we started to look for long entries on the trade. You can see when you line it up now with the low timeframes and the high timeframes, this is the clear horizontal area where you confirm the deviation back into the broader range, and you respected this downsloping trend line. You came in there, and we started to look for long trades right over here with that perfect wick into the bottom. So if we took that trade all together, we'd be up 35%.
I think we have a brief interruption on Kyle's connection here. He might snap back into it, but I know he likes 𝗓𝗡, and I know he likes 𝗓𝗓. And I got to tell you, this market is volatile because I got in 𝗓𝗡. Are you back? You got me now.
Yes, sorry about that. I think I cut out for a few seconds there.
It's all good.
Don't need to repeat anything. You got me.
No, you're good. We basically heard the majority of the thesis there and kind of what you're looking at. And man, I got to say, meme coins are so unhealthy for your psychology because these types of stories never help. I got in 𝗓𝗡 at 30 million. I sold at 1.5 billion. That is a 50x. So I crushed it. And that was like right when it launched.
Yeah.
But now that would be a 150x if I just never sold. But you can't look at things like that, right? So that's the type of thing. Meme coins are the ultimate casino, and they will fuel your greed. But you can't let that happen. This game is meant to fuel your greed, and you really have to resist that type of stuff. So yeah, I agree with your overall thesis on memes. Once you get a couple of hits, maybe reduce your size on the rest of your plays and play it safe, conserve your capital. You want to leave this cycle heavier in cash than you came in with, right? So that's the ultimate goal.
Sure. Well, we know the saying, right? No one ever went broke taking a profit, and
Yeah.
profits are necessary. You have to take them in order to win over the long run. And then the coins that I mentioned, as you also just said, now are pretty high market cap now. So I guess maybe what the audience are looking for are things that are low market cap with the potential to reach into the hundreds of millions or billions. In that case, some of my top picks become things like Tremp and 𝗏𝗏. I'm definitely playing big into the political meme space as we move towards the election phase. I think it's the easiest play in the world. I think it's just inevitable, lining up with Q3 where things start to move towards the upside and break out in a real way. New interest comes back into the market in terms of retail sentiment is positive. And of course, political meme coins, Tremp, 𝗏𝗏, interviews between each other, debates. Also, you have Bowden. These become big opportunities, which I think will steal the limelight. And I have some pretty sizable positions over there on those coins.
Love it. Well, Kyle, this was a super valuable session. I mean, you were dropping value the entire stream. We went over the market thesis. We went over where we think the floors of the market are, the timeline of the cycle, all the gaming coins, and of course, we had to degen some meme coins. But Kyle, this was long overdue. I was super happy to get you on the show today, and appreciate all the gems that you were dropping.
Thanks, bro. Honestly, a pleasure being here. We must definitely do it again. We delayed it for way too long. But yeah, thank you for having me. And guys, remember, like, subscribe. Let's get hustled to 100,000 on this channel.
Let's go. Let's run it up, guys. Like, subscribe, leave your comments down below on your thesis on anything that we spoke about and some of the coins that you're the most bullish on in the market right now. But we're going to go ahead and hop out of here. Like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all on the next one. As always, play well, my friends.